Professor Charles Seinfeld is here. You're going to be talking to a group about enterprise social media. First of all, before we hear about what you're going to talk, what are enterprise social media?
Yeah, that's defining them is it's a pretty hard thing to do. But we're all familiar with Facebook and with Twitter and with other public social media. We are in a period right now where these media are being adapted for internal organizational purposes because they provide some of the types of capabilities that companies like for things like knowledge management and really enhancing social capital inside organizations, but they want to keep that information circulating inside the company, not outside. It's not for public consumption, it's for their own employees. And so, where you can imagine these types of systems like a Facebook for the enterprise where it's completely internal.
Mm-hmm. What are they doing this because social media is so important? They have to do it, or there's very specific targeted goals they have?
I think a lot of it has to do with the recognition. As companies become more decentralized, more global, you end up with people kind of reinventing the wheel again and again and again. And so companies have, for many years, tried to address this through what we would call knowledge management systems. But those systems in the past have not worked very well. They've been very kind of, sort of static in the sense of, you produce a document and you put it into some kind of repository, and then theoretically people will search for it and find it and then use it, and that just doesn't really work well in these large globally distributed kinds of contexts. And so the beauty of social media is, people can almost without really trying very hard pick up a lot of who knows what and where to go for information without really trying very hard, and so that's what's made them quite attractive, and they're being brought in to really improve collaboration and knowledge management.
Mm-hmm. Even if they do accomplish that, are there some risks or impacts that are sort of unexpected that could result from the use of social media, the social enterprise systems?
Well, certainly, I think what we found in looking at these systems and looking at the literature and in our own research is that these are very malleable technologies, and they get used in different ways in different contexts. And so the same system that helps spread information widely might cause employees to be a lot more careful about what they're posting and sort of keep information a little bit closer to the vest because they know everything they do could be seen by such a wide audience. So, sometimes, unless you kind of create the right culture and set the right patterns and so forth, you end up, finding that it can backfire in terms of achieving the goals that the company has.
Are there some startling failures or successes that lead you on, or are companies finding a mixed set of results?
I think initially what happened when I go into the literature and I look, what I saw was that early on companies got a little bit burned by embracing the public social media platforms. So people starting to use Facebook and then having these immense problems with, what some people call context collapse, where their kind of private lives got blended with their work lives, and that wasn't always a pretty picture. Yeah. And so I think that sort of pushed the move to these more private systems, and I think we're just too early right now to really have a lot of things to say about, whether they're working or not working. It's very early. I think some companies have experienced lighter use than they anticipated of their systems, but others have reported quite promising quite outcomes in terms of enhanced collaboration, broader participation in projects from different types, people from different types of specialties and so forth that can be quite positive.
But it seems like the major advantage of social media is potentially outreach for these companies, and yet some of your findings is suggest that it could be just an echo chamber and actually block outreach. I don't.
Well, you do find that it can be quite possible that it becomes just a way for people to kind of talk to other people who have the same values and so forth. But I think also what you're getting at is, it's not to say that social media that reach the broader publics aren't valuable to companies, but that's for different purposes, right? And so that's branding, that's customer relationship management, so you have publics that you want to reach, and you'll use public social media for that. You may even have more constrained sets of stakeholders, like, let's say, a supply chain, or business partners, and you might have a more private system that connects with among all of those types of participants. But then what we were attempting to do in our papers on this was to point out that there's this third area where you have really closed systems that are strictly for employees, and that will generate different types of usage. It doesn't mean that companies aren't using public social media for branding and customer relationship management.
Thank you very much, and good luck with your talk.
Okay, thank you.